Ms. Hwang, we're here this morning to talk about Korean law and many things related to that. Now, you recently wrote a few blog posts about divorce and chastity in South Korea. So I'd like to start there and perhaps, if possible, separate law and culture. I'm not sure how they interact. Now, in the West, divorce is quite common these days. It doesn't have many negative associations or loss of social prestige with it. But before we talk about the law regarding divorce in Korea, what does divorce in Korea mean culturally? How do people feel about it? What is divorce here, Ms. Hwang?
I think that the social image to divorce has been changed a lot these days. So let me talk about the numbers. So last year, around 100,000 couples got divorced, and then around 190,000 couples got married. Okay. So roughly half of the couples seem to get divorced. So I think that divorce is common in Korea. And also for the older couples who have lived longer than 30 years are more likely to divorce these days. So Korean society has been much changed. But in the past, like 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, divorce could have a bad image to the divorced the couple. For instance, actors who got divorced could not appear on TV shows.
Wow, that's quite extreme.
It was yes, like it was very so. Those who got divorced didn't want to disclose their divorce to the public in the past. But nowadays, I think that, some people might think that divorce is not good, but I think that the negative images have been changing a lot these days.
What do you think? So when people were divorced, they had to hide it. They couldn't come on television. Why was divorce seen so negative? Was it like just traditional society? Korean is conservative. It's Confucianism. It's Christianity. What do you think it was, Ms. Hwang?
I think that it was, as you mentioned, Korean society was very conservative, and so Korean society has been affected by Confucianism. So cultural. So the social awareness was very different. And so I think that in the past, divorce was considered to be very shameful. But these days, Koreans, many Koreans think that divorce is just a personal issue.
Any idea what's bringing that change in the social perception of divorce? So these days it's a personal issue. People aren't so much worried about the nunchi or the social image. Is this change, do you know what's driving this change? Is it a good change or?
Well, I'm not sure what. I cannot choose just one factor that has changed this social awareness, but since some time, I'm not sure, but many public figure started to talk about their divorce on the media.
I think that really helps.
And also, as you might know, it related to the gender equality, and the Korean society has been changed a lot with regards to gender equality, and many people started to think that privacy is very important.
Yeah, I think individualism, perhaps women's rights, all these things seem to be helping quite a lot
Yes,
do this. Yeah.
yes.
What are some of the main reasons for divorce in Korea? So you mentioned one of them that was when people have been married 30 years, they might get divorced. So just age and
Mhm.
time. I heard one expression like graduating from marriage or something is divorce, like
Ah,
결혼, 뭐,
졸혼, 졸혼.
yeah,
Yes, yeah,
결혼,
졸혼
yeah,
is a new term. Yes.
yeah. What are some of the main reasons for divorce in Korea, do you think? Is there any idea or why people do it?
I have checked the statistics.
Mm,
So according to the statistics, the first main reason is the personality differences.
hmm
And the second one is financial problems. And third is the infidelity or adultery.
Just the same as anywhere in the world, then I guess it just
Yes,
people's
yes,
problems. Now,
yeah,
you wrote about this infidelity,
yes.
this adultery, which is quite interesting because until about 2015, adultery was illegal in South Korea. That blows my mind. That
Uh-huh.
was that true?
Yes. Until 2015,
Yeah.
adultery was punished
Mm,
according to Criminal Act. But Constitutional Court pronounced that the clause to punishing adultery was against the constitutional law.
mm.
So the clause was abolished.
When the clause was there, because this seems to regulate people's private behavior.
Mhm.
When the clause was there, was it enforced? So although it's a law, sometimes there's laws that we just never use,
Ah,
right? So when that adultery law was there until 7 years ago, did people actually, did courts and judges and whatever prosecutors, did they use this law, or was it just on paper and not effective?
yeah, it was used.
Wow.
So yeah. Some people who did adultery
Mm,
went to jail
wow.
actually, but not that often. But important thing that we need to note is that uh, for adultery clause, the spouse
Mm,
the spouse should file a divorce,
mm-hmm,
judicial divorce.
mm-hmm,
So if the a spouse does not file a case of divorce, then the the spouse who did adultery
mm-hmm,
could not be punished.
mm,
So yeah, in that case, many people wanted to press charges against their spouses for adultery,
mm.
but yeah, many of them did not file a case. So yeah, it was rejected.
Was there a basis for that law? I don't know how law works, Miss Hwang,
Mhm.
so forgive my stupid questions, but do laws have to have reasons or justifications? Like, what was the reason for there being a law against adultery?
In the past,
Yeah,
the purpose of the clause
that's
to
right.
punish the adulterer, I think that you might know basically the husband wife
Mm,
should um, be faithful
hmm
to their spouse and to try to protect their families. But adultery
mm,
is against betrays their spouse and yeah,
mm.
and break down the families. Mhm.
In one of your blog posts, Miss Hwang, you spoke about this idea of unchastity and
Yes.
uh, so what does this mean? Does like this is it gets a bit graphic here, but does this just mean sort of sexual relations, or does it go into other forms? How is it classified as unchastity or adultery? in a legal sense?
So, first of all, I'd like to mention that chastity
Mm,
is not appropriate. Actually, there is an official website
mm,
of English translation of Korean laws. So I had to cite the term in
mm,
the official English translation, but I think that infidelity will be uh, better
mm,
to make the English speakers understand what it means.
mm-hmm,
So in the laws, infidelity or unchastity means has broader meaning than adultery.
mm,
So it does not only include only sexual intercourse, but also like having some emotional,
mm-hmm,
emotional like attachment to the other uh, woman or man.
mm-hmm,
So like um, exchanging some messages like saying I love you or
mm,
having dinner very often.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So
Yes, so more a broader meaning than just sexual intercourse.
is that hard to, I mean, because it's very difficult to try to explain nicely, but sexual intercourse is a definite act. When we're looking
Yes.
at the intention of messages or something, does that become harder to interpret because you're sort of judging people's intentions through messages? And I find that really difficult sometimes. I'm not sure what people
Mm,
mean. How is that in law? Is that difficult or easy?
yeah, I don't think that it will be easy, but for instance, I
Mm,
would like to mention the social trend recently. Like these days, many people use the dating application,
mm-hmm,
so exchanging many messages with another woman or a man, and even if the person doesn't meet another woman or a man in person, the messages like
mm,
saying, yeah, like flirting or sexual connotation,
mm-hmm,
yeah, in the messages, that can be an evidence to the court.
mm, mm, mm.
Even if they do meet in person, they do not meet in person.
Very interesting. Does the law differ between heterosexual and homosexual relationships? So if a man and a woman are married, if a man is texting another woman with romantic intentions, or a man is texting another man with romantic intentions, does the law cover different types of relationships and sexuality, or is it strictly based on a heterosexual basis?
As you might assume that there is no specific clause to differentiate heterosexual or homosexual,
Mm,
but I think that it doesn't matter. Homosexual, heterosexual,
mm,
doesn't
mm,
matter.
mm. Yeah, it's still, I guess, the intention.
Mhm.
These are a lot of heavy questions for the morning, but one thing that has surprised me in South Korea is like the prevalence of I'm not sure what the correct word is, room salons or hostess bars,
Mhm.
nighttime entertainment, which are sort of used around business and various things, and they're quite visible in the city. Um, Now, is there a difference between, how is that treated? Is that counted as infidelity or unchastity, those things, or are they separate from?
Ah, visiting room salons can be infidelity
It seems
too.
to,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. As you might know, the laws does not differentiate the two things,
Hmm.
like going to room salon and the having just mistress or having a lover.
Hmm.
But basically, both will be considered to be as adultery. And also, as you might know, uh, visiting room salon and having a sexual intercourse with some hostess will be shall be punished by under the commercial sex related laws.
So it's actually illegal.
Illegal.
But it's really interesting that it's illegal but very common. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think that is a darker side of the Korean society. Basically, it is, yeah. So, it is very controversial issue. Whether buying a sexual relationship should be punished or not. But anyway, at this point, paying the money to the hostess and having a sexual relationship will be punished at this point.
It's very interesting to me that something is illegal but also very common in society, because it seems to kind of undermine the law or weaken the law. That's the image that I get from it. How does you've written about this as well, Ms. Hwang, how does compensation work? So in Korean law, you've said that if your partner cheats on you while you're married,
yes,
then you're entitled to financial compensation for the suffering caused. Is that common? How much money normally changes hands, or what happens with this financial compensation if your partner cheats on you?
It's very common to claim the financial compensation for mental damaging by the spouse's adultery or cheating. And the amount, the granted amount is around 10 million won to 50 million won. And many issues are considered when the judge decides the amount of financial compensation, like how often the person had sexual intercourse with another man or another woman, and whether the person feels remorseful or not, like that. And in one of the worst cases I have heard is that a housewife raised maybe 3 children whose mother is her husband's mistress.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very shocking. So so the amount of the financial compensation for that case was around 100 million won.
Seems even that's not enough, does it?
Yes. I don't think that is enough, but it's the worst case.
Does it matter how much money the guilty person has? So you said whether there's remorse or how often the infidelity was taking place. If it was a rich man, are they likely to have to pay more compensation than if it's a poor man? Does the person, or poor man or poor woman or rich woman, does the person's finances come into the judge's decision?
For financial compensation for cheating has actually nothing to do with how rich the person is, and how the person is rich is related to asset division.
Okay.
So like a separate issue. So if the person is rich, then the amount of asset division will be higher.
how does asset division normally work? So in case of divorce, is it like generally just 50-50 or something like that? Or what I know nothing about it, Ms. Hwang. What factors affect asset division in divorce in Korea?
For asset division, many factors are considered, like how long the couple got married and how long each person has contributed to making and keeping the asset. So, and also the peculiar property will be excluded from the target asset.
What's a
So
peculiar
roughly,
property? What's a peculiar property?
peculiar property means the property acquired before marriage, like inheritance.
Okay.
So roughly stated, the woman, a wife, there is a housewife, and the couple has has been married around 20 years. Then the housewife can get about 50% of the marriage asset. Roughly stated, yeah.
Is that what happens normally in reality? It's
Yes,
about
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've heard stories, so I don't know if this is true, that's why I'm asking you, but I've heard stories of certain people like downgrading their primary residence in preparation for a divorce, using tricks to make sure that, you know, what they have is not halved. Does that take place, and what kind of things normally happen in that?
Yes, it is very. Basically, you mean that some man, some guy try to, men and women, some people try to avoid giving more money from the asset division. So some people try to sell the house before divorce, or try to transfer their money from their bank accounts. But it can be punished because there is a clause in the criminal act to punish the person who avoids execution. So if it is found that the person intentionally tries to avoid the execution from the asset division, then the person can be punished. And also, if it is found that the person is intentionally trying to hide their asset, like selling the house to his or her family members, like that, then the spouse, the other party, can file a civil case and to cancel the selling the house. Like that.
That's good to know that the tricks are caught, the tricks are punished when people try to do that.
Yes,
The law is aware of it. How does what we've said so far, does any of this change or when we deal with multicultural families, Ms. Hwang? So I wonder if the law, when it's dealing with two Korean, a man and a woman, or whether it's dealing with a Korean man and a foreign woman, or whether it's dealing with a foreign man, does it differentiate between that at all? Because culturally, they sometimes feel like different cases, different situations, and also different power dynamics, maybe. Does the law treat them differently, treat them all the same?
Basically, for international divorce, governing law is important. The governing law should be mentioned first. So if a spouse as Korean national, then Korean Civil Act will be applied to the divorce case. And if Korean Civil Act is applied, then both parties will be treated equally, fairly. So I don't think that the nationality itself cannot be treated differently.
Okay.
But when the judge reviews the case, actually, the judge will consider many factors. Like for instance, as for custody, child custody, the judge will consider who will be able to provide better environments to the child. And when the judge considers that issue, nationality might be considered. The language, as you might know, there is a language issue. There might be a language issue. Yeah, in taking care of the child.
Is it just language? Is there any kind of more this kind of ethnicity or Tanil Minjok kind of thing coming, or is language just the basis on that, do you think, Ms. Hwang?
Well, in my opinion, the judges do not consider ethnicity.
Okay. No, thank you for asking. Sometimes I do ask strange questions, but thank you for your honesty. It's great. In terms of non-Korean parents and custody of children,
yes,
what rights do these people have? Like, do you think the legal system does an adequate job of protecting these people? Because there's more and more multicultural, I think, families growing. So in these multicultural families, do the non-Korean parents have adequate rights in terms of custody and things like that, or even visiting? Or
as I mentioned, the rights stated in Civil Act are applied to the expats equally. In the same way. So the non-Korean parent can get visitation rights, and also they can have a child custody and parental authorities of their children. And also, as you know, for expats, for non-Korean parents, visa issues are very important. So most parents, non-Korean parents, have F6 visa, I think. And most of the non-Korean parents will be worried about their visa status. But even after divorce, they can keep their F6 visa if they can have child custody or visitation rights. Then they can keep their F6 visa until the child will become an adult.
I sometimes hear lots of, horror stories online or things like this, but it's just online. But the way you describe it, it seems like the Korean law with divorce and custody seems to do quite a good job of protecting people. It seems to be quite fair. Is that your assessment when you look at it? Do you think it's doing the job that it should for people?
So, could you clarify your questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, my question, that's totally fine, Ms. Hwang. My question is, listening to what you say, say that the Korean law does protect people. It does protect Koreans and non-Koreans, and it does things fairly. In your own personal opinion, do you think the Korean law is doing a good job of handling divorce and multicultural families and custody? Do you think the law is working well?
I don't think that the Korean law is perfect, but
Sure.
Korean laws or Korean judges do not have any kind of bias against multicultural people, I think. But from my experiences, language barrier is the most a critical issue because if a non-Korean parent cannot speak in Korean well, then they cannot have a chance to defend themselves. That's the problem. But from my experiences, most judges try to consider the non-Korean parents' situation.
It's very nice to hear that, Miss Hwang. I have to keep studying my Korean. Is split custody a thing in South Korea? So, for example, if a couple have 3 children and one wants to stay with the father and 2 with the mother, or is that common? Does that work?
Oh yes, yeah, it does works, but I don't think that it is that common. But yeah, it can work. And so yeah, as you mentioned, the mother can raise 1 or 2 children, and the father can raise have a child custody of the other child.
Okay, that's good to hear. Somebody asked me about the Hague Convention of Kidnapping, and I didn't really understand their question. They told me, David, please ask Miss Hwang about the Hague Convention of Kidnapping and things. So I didn't quite understand it because I'm not well versed in law. But what is that, and how is that working in Korea? I guess it's taking children to other countries, or?
Hague Convention is a convention between the countries. So the countries who made the convention help the person who from the other countries with the Hague Convention. Like if a child is abducted from the country under the Hague Convention. So for instance, a child, a Korean woman abducted a child from a foreign country under Hague Convention, and she came to Korea with the child. Then the father of the child can ask and request the government of his country. Then the government will contact Korean government, and Korean Ministry of Justice will contact the woman and will find the woman and contact the woman, requesting that the child shall be returned to the country. And actually there is a law in Korea. The law was established to implement the Hague Convention. So if the father files a case based on the law to request the court to order the woman to return the child to the country, then the court shall make a decision based on the Hague Convention and based on the law. But the judge cannot make a decision on child custody.
Okay.
The judge can only make a decision for only whether the child should be returned to the country or not.
Okay.
And the judge should make a decision immediately. But from my experience, I have dealt with the Hague Convention cases, but it is not easy to get a court decision. But the issue is execution. Because execution means, in this case, execution means to bring the child to the country,
Right.
to his or her original country. but it is very difficult if the mother or father who abducted the child refuses to return the child.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can imagine that would. Are most countries signed up to the Hague Convention? Is it like most of the developed countries, it's all an agreement they're all in on? Or?
Yes, I think so. So I think, yeah, many countries, yeah, signed the convention.
Mm-hmm.
But um, even if abduction takes place in the non-signed country, it is possible to request the court to return the child.
Okay. Just perhaps rounding up our conversation, this first conversation on divorce, Miss Hwang. At the start, you mentioned like the marriage certificates and marriage statistics, how many people getting married, how many people are getting divorced. In Korea these days, fewer and fewer people get married. That seems to
I'm
be...
not married.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not married either.
I am, but what I wonder is if not just you, but divorce lawyers, family lawyers, when they see those low marriage statistics, do they get sad because they will have no business? Or, I mean, you want people to be married, I guess, don't you? And then get divorced, or?
It's a very interesting question. Well, I have not think over. I mean that I have not tried to the marriage statistics with my business.
Okay. It's a strange question because if there was no divorce in the country, then the divorce lawyers might be really sad, or the families
Maybe.
might be. Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that we've missed about divorce? Is there anything else that we need to cover? Divorce or custody, compensation? We did adultery. Is there anything else, Ms. Hwang, that you think is important or you would like to say about the concept of divorce law? And
I would like to mention the visa status. So many non-Korean parents or many expats who are considering divorce are worried about their visa status. So so many expats are asking about if they can keep their F6 visa after divorce. So I'd like to answer the question. So as you might know, there are two types of divorce. So divorce by agreement and judicial divorce.
I didn't know that.
I don't think that you have to know that if you do not consider divorce.
But there's two types. So let me just stop here.
Two types, yeah.
Can you just quickly
Divorce,
explain them? Yeah.
Yes, divorce by agreement, so-called uncontested divorce, and judicial divorce, so-called contested divorce. So for divorce by agreement, the process is very simple. The husband and wife need to just fill out the form and submit the form to the court, and then they will have a cooling off period. For a couple having children will have three months of cooling off period, and for the couple who having no child will have 1 month cooling off period. Cooling off period means that the period to consider their divorce again. And then after cooling off a period, the couple shall attend the court in person, and they will confirm their intention to divorce in front of a judge. And after that, Korean the divorce shall be registered to community center like Gucheong, and then that's it. Then the process is very simple. But for divorce by agreement, non-Korean non-Korean cannot extend their F6 visa. So in short, in order to extend F6 visa, the expats should prove that their spouses have faults at divorce. And in order to prove that their spouse has a fault at divorce, they should get the court decision stating that the spouse has fault decision like cheating or like verbal abuse like that. And the best way to extend the visa and to prove that the spouse has faults at divorce is to get the financial compensation due to the spouse's faults at divorce. Then the immigration office will see the result of the court cases, judicial divorce, and then they will find that the Korean spouse had faults, and the divorce was not due to the expat, and then they will extend the expat's F6 visa. So it is very important.
So if it's a divorce by agreement, people cannot keep their visa?
Correct.
Only if it's a judicial one and they are the wronged party, they had something done against them, then they can keep. That's well,
yes, it's very important.
Yeah. I never would have thought about that. When you said, for example, that after a cooling off period, two people attend court and they confirm their divorce. Again, it's probably a stupid question. What happens with like the jokbo or like the family register thing? Is that just changed? Is that important?
Jokbo is different from family relation registry.
Okay.
Yeah, Jokbo shows the family history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not applicable here.
But family relation registry is recorded for only Korean national.
Okay.
So foreigners cannot have family relation records in Korea. Their own, they cannot have their own family relation registry in Korea.
Because they're foreigners, because they're not Korean.
Yes, non-Korean, because they are non-Korean.
If a foreigner gets Korean citizenship, if a foreigner changes their citizenship, then they're applicable? Then
yes,
totally
of course. Yes, it's just, it is just about the nationality.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense. Like I said, I know nothing about Korean law. That's why I'm speaking to you. When you mentioned these two types of divorce, and I wasn't aware of that, is one more common than the other? Like, so you had divorce by agreement and judicial divorce, I think you mentioned, were the two. Do you see more divorce by agreement? Do you see more judicial divorce, or is it 50-50? What's...
I have checked the statistics of divorce.
Okay.
And around 77% of divorce cases are done with the divorce by agreement. 77%.
Wow. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It's just a thing? What does that mean?
Well, I think that, Yeah, I think that is a good thing. Yeah, of course, it might be bad thing to my business because for divorce by agreement
Yeah.
does not need to legal lawyer's assistance.
Mm, 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 mm.
But anyway, considering the Korean society, I think that it's a good thing. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Because as you might know, the judicial divorce is a very stressful process. So when I when I have a consultation with
Mm,
my clients who want to divorce, then uh, I I often try to give them
mhm,
to try to give them to time to consider divorce again because
mm,
it's a big decision, the biggest decision in their lives.
mm. Is there much when they're going through divorce by agreement or judicial divorce, Ms. Hwang? Is there
Mhm.
counseling or is like sangdam or psychological help provided by the Korean legal system, or is that separate?
Yes, it is possible to request the marriage counseling to
Hmm.
the court. And also even after the divorce case, judicial divorce compli complaint is filed, it is
Hmm.
possible for one party to request marriage counseling to the
Mm,
court.
okay.
The court, family court, considers couples happiness and their psychological problems too.
Mm-mm-mm. That's really
So the court, courts try to give them one more chance if they want.
after hearing you speak about this, I'm quite positive about Korean law now. That is good. Um, there are some other issues that I want to ask you about briefly that you've written about, Miss Hwang, on your blog and things like that. So
Yes.
I might jump to some of them if I can now.
Mhm.
The first one is about defamation and how that works in Korea. Now, I work in media. I write a column every week. And from my understanding, and it's probably wrong, that in Korea, even if you say something true about somebody, it's like a
Mhm.
fact, it's proven that if it harms their reputation, you could still be sued for defamation. How does defamation work here, Miss Hwang?
Um, Basically, for defamation, there are some elements of defamation.
Mm-hmm.
So, like defamation should include the statements of the specific facts. So
Mm-hmm.
it means that like just opinion
Mm-hmm.
on somebody
Right.
cannot be defamation, and also stating the facts uh, can be helpful to the public interest.
Mm.
It cannot be defamation.
Okay.
It can be justifiable, and also for public figure, uh, the statements about the public figure have more freedom, the more more space
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to commending the public figure.
So you, rather than sort of a private individual, if they're a private individual and you're talking about their bad history or something,
Mhm.
that's more likely to be defamation than if they're a public figure.
Yes, correct. And also, the other element of defamation is the possibility of the statements being widespread.
Okay.
It is also an important element of defamation. And so there are many court cases on defamation. So, for instance, a person mentioned that the public figure, a
Mm.
politician, is a communist,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't punished because it is just an opinion and the person is public figure.
So you're allowed to have an opinion on a public figure?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It is not easy to tell what is opinion and what is specific fact. Yeah. So yeah, it is necessary to check the court cases.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Another one, Miss Hwang, this is possibly jumping topic a little bit, but that was defamation. Something that becomes very common online on social media is comments about how lenient, how low the sentencing is for crimes related to those of kind of a sexual nature, or spy cam, or molka. So I don't know if they're lenient or not, but they seem to be from an outside perspective of the law. People seem to get very low sentences for these kind of things. Do you have any legal observation from that, or how that's working, why the public think these sentences are so low?
Well, I think that many people cannot be satisfied the sentence against the kind of crimes, but these days the sentences have become heavier than before for sexual crimes like molka, hidden camera, like that has become stricter than before.
What is it that's making them stricter? Is it the case that the law needs to catch up? Because this is kind of new technology, I think, new crime. This wasn't possible maybe 30 years ago. So what's changing that, do you think, Ms. Hwang?
So actually, these days, recently, a new law has been established on like deepfake. Deepfake, like
Yep.
the one person and adding some other sexual images to this person. A clause to punish deepfake was inserted to the law. It was newly established, and also in criminal act, the punishment, there is a statutory punishment like not less than 10 years imprisonment, not less than 10 million fine. And the judges can decide the sentence within the statutory punishment. But these days, the judges tend to give heavier sentences within the statutory punishment. But I know that many people don't think that the sentences are enough. And also, I think that the victims should be more protected.
I think that's
I think
really
that
important.
we need to have more, to be more interest and to be more careful to the victim.
Sometimes it feels like in Korea the victim is the one that feels guilty socially, from social pressure and things like that. Then we see mental health or suicide and things like that.
Yes, correct. Yeah, secondary attack. And also, as you might know, it is very difficult to report sexual crime to the police. So as far as I know, many victims cannot report even if they are damaged from the crime.
Test my knowledge here, but I think it was someone, was it like Kwon In-suk was the first one that did it with the Bucheon thing, and that was only maybe
sexual torture.
Yeah. It's only recent. So my question here, I guess, Ms. Hwang, would be the interaction between law and culture. So you said there's a new clause about deep fakes that's been inserted.
Yes.
to me, so please tell me what your opinion is, culture moves very fast these days. You know, culture's changing, technology, attitudes, but then law moves more slowly because it has to
Yeah.
be more accurate. Is that the case, that culture moves very fast, but law has to take time to catch up? Or do they go the same speed?
Mm. I don't think that they go to the same speed. As you might know, yeah, as you mentioned that the cultural change is very speedy, but in order to amend the laws or making a new laws, there should be many processes to
Yeah.
to introduce the bills, and it will be passed in the Congress like that. So I think that there are many cases that the laws cannot catch up with the cultural changes.
Maybe that's what makes some people angry, I think, because they're in the modern culture, they want the law to be there, perhaps.
Correct.
This might be a really difficult question, but I'm going to turn a little bit to politics. Please, you don't have to answer any if you don't want. But when I look at Korean politics, many of the presidential candidates, the president, other political figures, they seem to me to come from a lawyer background. They're prosecutors, they're human rights lawyers, and such thing. Is that common? Is there a particular culture in Korea where lawyers and legal people then go into politics? Or what's the relationship, Ms. Hwang, do you think, in Korea between law and then high-level politics as a pathway?
I think that yes, the among Korean presidents, Nomuhyun, Moon Jae-in, and Yoon Suk-yeol were from the lawyers and prosecutors. So actually, in Korea, many lawyers go into the politics, and then some of them became the president. So, but I'm not sure if this is unique to Korea or to other Western countries. How about the US or other Western countries?
It's a good question. I don't know. I'm from the United Kingdom, and
How about the UK then?
well, I don't think Boris Johnson or Theresa May or David Cameron come from such a background, because I would imagine that law pays better than politics. I would imagine, people can earn more money doing law than doing politics. So I guess I would have thought most people would stay in law and legal services.
Well, but the lawyers' job is to apply the law to actual cases, but the politicians can make new laws. It's very different.
So
I think that so the politicians, the many people think that the politicians can change the world. Of course, lawyers can change the world to get a very meaningful court cases, but I think the politicians can more directly change the world, establishing new laws or amending the existing laws.
So, any thoughts of running for president, Miss Hwang, becoming a politician?
Me?
Yes.
I actually, I majored in political science in graduate school. So I have much interest in politics, Korean politics. But at this point, I'd like to focus on my
Okay.
lawyering.
If you do eventually do it, please remember me.
Okay.
Just, I am joking, of course. Just one last question, perhaps on politics. So we have President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol, who
Yes.
will take office May 9th, May 10th, around there.
Yes.
He President-elect Yoon has been behind the investigations of former Justice Minister Cho Guk, former
Yes.
President Park Geun-hye, and former President Im Young-bak.
Mhm.
That seems to, it's gone across political lines, his
Mhm.
investigations and
Yeah.
prosecutions.
Yes.
Um, do you think his administration, 5 years, will be good for Korean law in general? Will there be any change? Nothing will. What do you imagine from a legal sense for the next 5 years under President-elect Yoon?
Mm, basically, I think that yeah, Mr. Yoon has shown very consistent attitude, perspective to the investigation. As you mentioned, he fairly investigates the powerful people from
Mm,
both parties. So I think that he will be fair to the investigation. And the most important thing is that um, administration should not uh, uh, ha, uh, administration should not have effect to the courts
mm,
or prosecutor's office. That's the most important thing. So the administration, courts, prosecutor's office
mm,
should be separately managed. And I think that the courts and prosecutor's office should be independent from the administration. I think that that's most important. But my thought is, to be honest, the
mm.
current administration um, has failed uh, to um, to guarantee the court and prosecutor's office independence.
Mm.
To be honest, it's my opinion. So at least Mr. Yoon will be better, yeah, in that part, I think.
Will it be difficult to get that independence? Is it just a simple decision? Because I know sometimes some things are ingrained in society, like in Korea, the relationship between government and business and
Mhm.
motebol, and it's really hard just to change that overnight sometimes because it's part of the fabric. Do you think that independence between the president and the prosecutor's office will be easy to achieve for him? Will it be a difficult thing to accomplish, or?
Well, I don't think that it will be very complicated because I think that if just the new president
Mm,
uh, doesn't does not do anything to the prosecutor's office,
mm,
that yeah, then the prosecutor's office will be independent from the yeah, administrative power, I
mm.
think.
Excellent. Um, okay, Miss Hwang, just looking at these, I perhaps have maybe three more questions for you.
Mhm.
The first one, we've looked a lot at different types of Korean law and spoken about it. You've been quite positive about it, I think. Is there anything that you you think Korean law needs to change or improve, or it's on the right path? Looking at Korean law more broadly, if you could snap your fingers and make one change, is there anything immediately that you would want to bring about, or are you happy with it so far?
Well, I think that the legal system and the Korean legal system is very good, I think. But
Mm,
the problem is that there has been corruption. Like some people try to give money to the judges, like
mm-hmm,
bribe the judges to get a good result from the court cases.
mm,
And these days, yeah, there are some suspicions about the Supreme Court judges might have been yeah bribed
mm-hmm,
about some cases, court cases. I think that yeah, that's that's the serious, very serious problem in Korea. So the legal system itself is very well established, I think, but the judges, like prosecutors, should try to be more fair, and I think that the bribery to the judges or prosecutor should be punished heavily.
Is that change something that needs to come from systemic change or law change, like Kim Yong-lam Bob, or is it just that the people need to be more moral, more ethical? So is that a systemic change or is that an individual change, do you think, Ms. Hwang?
Well, I think that systemic change will be necessary, and also the society, including media and Korean people, and should monitor what they are doing, and we need to try to make them stop them from doing like illegal things, like take bribery. So system changes and media monitoring will be very important.
I think everybody has to play their part in that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Social thing. You've been, Ms. Hwang, you've been doing some YouTube videos, you've done some blog posts to try to help make law more accessible to people, because even for me, law is very difficult. I have a reasonable level of education, but what comes next for you? Are you gonna do more sort of media work, focus on the law? What's the next step, I guess, for Ms. Hwang?
So, as you might know, I have my own YouTube channel. So I have uploaded very short videos with the text to explain Korean laws. But I'm considering making a video, and I'm going to appearing on the video by myself, and to explain the cases and court cases and the Korean laws. And also, if possible, I would like to invite some expert guests to my YouTube channel, and you can be one of the guests to my YouTube channel.
I don't want to be divorced though, just make that clear.
No, just like, because I don't think that it will be interesting if I just explain the things. So I think that if the one guest will appears on my video, and the guest will ask some questions related to Korean law, that it will be more interesting.
More natural, I think, easier to understand.
Natural, and it will have more fun.
But still be very informative, like today, Ms. Hwang. I've learned a lot about you. So during these conversations, I often come in with many preconceptions about Korean law or politics, whatever the subject. But when I listen to people and ask them questions, I find that my perspectives change. So I'm really thankful for your time in explaining this today. It's very cool. Sorry.
Okay. No.
My last question is one that I ask all my guests, and it's a bit of a weird one, but I like asking it. The question, Ms. Hwang, is this: we're all in this world together. We're all here on this planet. What can we do to make our lives better? What can we do to bring more value to our existence, to help others? Ms. Hwang, what is the meaning of life?
I think that we should not hate each other. I think that that's the most important thing. So there have been many conflicts between men and women, and between different races, and different groups in Korea. So, as you might know, in the US, during the COVID pandemic era, many Asians were attacked. So so everyone was shocked at the scene, like Asians were beaten by the black people or white people. But unfortunately, in Korea, I think there has been some bias against the expats in Korea too. So if Koreans want to criticize, blame the US or other Western people's racism against the Asians, then Koreans need to be fair to the expat too, I think. So we need to embrace the multicultural differences and cultural differences.
I agree with you. Ms. Hwang, do you think we need to hate less? I completely agree with you. Do you think we live in a society where it's more profitable to hate? Like if something is on social media or in the news or media, that if it is divisive, if it is focusing on separation, that more people will be engaged and more advertisements and revenue than if it's just a simple message of togetherness or love or compassion. Do you think we live in a society where hate is more profitable, perhaps, in that sense?
So yeah, some people use hatred for their profits to gather more popularity, like in the YouTube. But I would like to mention that if you hate somebody, then you can be hated by somebody too. I think that that's the most important. And also, hatred might be profitable to individual or into some groups, but to see the entire society, hatred costs a lot, I think. If the conflicts, I mean that the more conflicts, the more, how can I say, the more costs, the social costs, and the more people feel unsafe. It will increase the social costs eventually, which will result in a negative effect to all of us.
I think you said a very profound thing. It's very simple, but you said, Ms. Hwang, if you hate somebody, you will be hated too.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. Ms. Hwang, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will look forward to having another chance to talk with you.
Yeah.
Someday.
Thank you.